This episode is sponsored by txcitizen.com, local New Braunfels news that's exclusively online and completely free. Also sponsored by the Texas Gamers Lounge, now with 2 locations in San Marcos and Austin. Both locations feature all-you-can-play pinball, arcades, modern and retro consoles for only $9.99. Follow them on social media by visiting TexasGamersLounge.com. And welcome to our first movie review. We're going to be reviewing Captain Marvel today. So as you can see, we started off this review with some technical difficulties. So you see our beautiful little microphone here shaped together with a ruler. But you know, one thing I'm already learning about doing a YouTube show is things will happen at the last minute, and it's the old saying, the show must go on. So the show's going to go on because we want to get this out this weekend, obviously, for all of you who are going to go watch it. So, Sarah and I went to go watch it last night, and we wanted to do half no spoilers and then half spoilers, but again, time crunch. So we figure most of you have already either seen it or going to see it, but in the comments in the description, we'll put that it is a spoiler review. So I'm just going to start off with some of the things that I noticed about it, but I know Sarah has a few things she wants to go over first since it's her first review.
Yes, hi. So Joe and I have been married for 5 years, and I believe in the first video he covered a little bit about the different facets of geekery that we like. One of the main things to know is that Joe knows much more about comics than I do. So when it comes to superhero reviews, he has background knowledge and I generally don't. I'm very sarcastic and I like to give him a hard time.
Never.
So that'll come out sometimes. We don't rehearse anything, so Joe doesn't know what I'm going to say. And
Family friendly.
Oh yeah, we're family friendly. That's important. So Joe is more into sci-fi. I'm more into fantasy. He's more into comics. I'm more into board gaming. He's older. I'm younger. And I think I'll cut this out. We need to talk about your shirt. So Joe wore this really obscure shirt that it looks like it's in no way related to the movie we're going to talk about today. And I told him nobody was going to get it, but he wanted to explain why he's wearing it, so he gets to do that.
Because Rocko's Modern Life was one of the best 90s cartoons there is, and Captain Marvel takes place in the 90s. It's very simple, dear.
Yes, simple and obscure. But for all you old people out there, you're going to get this one. And now I have a bunch of female superheroes on my shirt, but Joe's going to explain the version of Captain Marvel who's on here because it's comic book based, so he knows.
I think I'll just hold the mic. I think I should stay in control of this mic. I'll probably post a picture of what this is close up because basically it's a good segue into what I know about Captain Marvel because you'll see when I post the picture that she has a version of Captain Marvel when she was still just simply called Miss Marvel. So basically what I grew up knowing because of comic books, I was really into the X-Men, and at the time Carol Danvers, who is Captain Marvel, was associated with the X-Men. Captain Marvel as a character has a very long and convoluted history. That's why this movie is probably a good jumping on point if you've never heard of Captain Marvel. And if you end up liking her as a character, good luck trying to backtrack and find out about her because honestly, they've really worked hard to fix a lot of her backstory and things, which is a lot of what you'll see in the movie. But anyway, my limited time with this character has been just in the last 10 years when she has been taking on this particular version that you see Brie Larson play in this movie, where she has the red, blue, and gold uniform. and she has the look that you've seen in the trailers. The intro to the movie is like it's a space movie basically, but it's not unlike Guardians of the Galaxy. Guardians of the Galaxy had more of its own like tone and kind of snarkiness to it, but of course that was director James Gunn's sensibilities, and so he really injected that here. Here with this movie, you've got two different directors, so I don't know how they split up the duties, but you definitely feel like three distinct movies here. So the intro is about them showing Carol, because they don't go for the traditional origin story here, which is one of the ways they've marketed the movie. They basically start you when she's already out in space. She's already part of the Kree Empire. She's already a known warrior out there. And so we as the audience are thrown into that, and we're trying to figure it out along with her, because she doesn't remember anything about her past life, only her life since she's been on part of the Kree Empire. So you get introduced to her, you get introduced to Jude Law as Von Rogg, you get introduced to the other Star Force characters. So it was kind of a slow start, believe it or not, even though it was, basically you didn't really get any space battles per se. It was more like a covert mission they got sent at the beginning. So, but it did give you a chance to see the characters in action. What did you think about just the opening parts in space and the explanation of that world?
Well, first of all, I was very confused because I had no background knowledge of the character whatsoever. So she bled blue, and I was like, oh, she must be an alien. So that's kind of like the perspective going into it. Like, you learn about the character, but you learned about the character throughout the movie. So if you didn't know the character going into it, then you're probably just trying to figure stuff out. Like, why is she in space and fighting these people? And why does she have a sense of humor and no one else does? And why is she bleeding blue? Because I think she's with these guys, but she's not acting like she's with these guys. So at that point, I was just trying to figure stuff out for the most part.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty representative of, because Sarah, like she said, she's more of a general audience, moviegoer. So to hear her say that, it makes me think, are other people going to feel that way too? Because, like I said before, I know that Marvel wanted to do a different kind of origin story. And so from there, they basically move on to where she, the action that's set up in the first act, that's where she crash lands on Earth and meets, the young Nick Fury. And then from there, that's the second act basically turns into like a buddy cop movie, which it's funny. I don't know if it was done on purpose or what, but I did feel like I was watching like a 90s buddy cop movie. Like some of my favorites are like Lethal Weapon, and later on I did like Rush Hour. I mean, there wasn't as much comedy, but I did feel like that, it was purposely a 90s movie. Did that feel that way with you, especially with the action and stuff like that?
It definitely felt like an old movie to me, which means it felt like a normal movie to Joe. So yeah, I definitely had the feeling, I couldn't place the era, but I definitely had the feeling that, like, okay, this is older, they're dropping into a blockbuster, those don't exist anymore. So, oh, it's VHS. Oh, that's strange. So all the children going are like, what's that, mommy and daddy? So yeah, I definitely had that feeling, but I don't know about the buddy cop because I don't have a lot of experience in the buddy cop area. So
yeah, I mean, at that point, it basically became Samuel Jackson and Brie Larson together, which I think they definitely played off each other better than in the first act. It was kind of Brie Larson and then a little bit of everybody. I mean, Jude Law was her mentor, but I felt like her and Samuel had a better chemistry, I guess, because Samuel's his traditional jokey self. And then the thing about Brie Larson that kind of threw me off about this movie was she plays it very straight-faced. And that really surprised me because, I mean, I love Brie Larson. Some of my favorite roles for her were like when she played Envy Adams in Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. I loved her in that. We both watched the movie The Room, which she won the Academy Award for. And, of course, she had to pretty much carry that movie by herself. Her and the child actor. So I know that she can carry roles by herself. So the only in thinking about it, since we watched it, I was trying to justify, okay, why would she play it that way? Is it because she's trying to show that there's something missing, which of course we find out throughout the movie there's a ton of her memories missing. I mean, did you get that sense with her, the way she was playing the character?
Yeah, it was pretty serious. I felt like that was like the Kree coming out almost. Like I've been conditioned that I'm not supposed to feel things and that I'm not supposed to have a sense of humor. But then you like her sarcastic sense of humor would come out a little bit sometimes, but she said it like really like straight faced. So it was like true sarcasm. So yeah, I feel it, but I feel like it was part of the character too. Because she was trying to make that like, I don't know who I am anymore. I think I'm a Kree kind of thing.
Yeah, because then we get to the third act, which is when we find out that she had her best friend Maria Rambo, who was a fellow pilot, and through meeting her, we finally learn the secrets of her origin. Well, I mean, all I want to say about the last part is that last act is where it finally felt like a Marvel movie to me. Yeah. Because Marvel movies, even though they've all had different directors and different creative teams, I think for the most part they've kept a consistent feel, and so this one, it didn't really feel that way until later in the movie, and then especially when they had a really cool twist with the Skrulls, which we haven't talked about them yet. They're the bad guys of this.
Oh yeah. So. Yeah, that surprised me. But at the same time, so I can spoil this, right? Sure. Okay, all right. So, basically, like for me watching it, because I had no background knowledge, I definitely thought that the Skrulls were the bad guys for most of the movie, and then all of a sudden I found out they weren't. And I thought it was really interesting because for the first half of the movie, they made the Skrulls look really like ugly and like, ugh, and they died and like they look terrible and all that stuff. And then once they turned it around and made them the good guys, then the Skrulls that they showed were like a lot softer looking. They had a lot softer features. So I was like, oh, they totally did that on purpose, and then, but one thing that I thought it wasn't, and I don't know, it might be coming from the comics, but it wasn't a very original thing that they did, because a lot of movies have been doing that now, that it's like, oh, I think this is the bad guy. And then halfway through, oh, I completely changed my mind. Now this is the bad guy. And then you're reintroduced to the bad guys again, but in a different light. And then you have to find out who like the hero side is again, which of course, we know, Captain Marvel is the main hero. We just know going into it, but we don't know necessarily what side she's on until that point, unless you had the background knowledge. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it was almost a given that Jude Law was going to be a bad guy. I don't know, there was just something about his presence that seemed that way. But the Skrull, it wasn't so much that they weren't bad. I mean, they how do I say it? Like, they were more realistic. It was kind of like they were going for that same idea, like in Black Panther, where Killmonger, he has his points of views, and you kind of understand him. So I kind of feel like with the Skrull leader, who is Talos, who's played by Ben Mendelsohn, who I loved in like Star Wars Rogue One, and he was the main bad guy in Ready Player One. He just has that presence about him. So when he turns or shows that he's just basically trying to help his people, I almost kind of wish they would have done that towards the beginning, and it's almost like they told him to play it that way, because at the beginning he was more of the traditional kind of almost cackling villain, and he was having fun with the heroes and messing with Nick Fury. And then all of a sudden he turns and it's like, well, didn't you know that you were not the bad guy the whole time? So that was kind of odd, off-putting a little bit. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that definitely in cinema, they were just going for that. At that point, they were going for like the surprise villain, and instead of the consistent villain. So, I mean, I didn't even know that the the Kree guy was the villain, even like with their interactions with her in the beginning, because it just seemed like he was training her. And then even that they showed like a fondness, like he had kind of grown attached to her. So, but it was like, I've grown attached to you, but I want you to stay on my side, and I'm ready to turn on you if you don't. But then yes, with the bad, I forget his name now, the green bad guy.
Oh, his name was Talos.
With Talos, okay. Talos, yeah, that they completely did a shift for him. Like, he was acting evil, and then he wasn't acting evil anymore, and it was really blatantly done. I mean, you could tell.
Yeah, and one other thing, I mean, we'll probably start wrapping this up here, but one other thing that I noticed, because obviously we were aware of all the controversy surrounding this movie and whatnot. We just went in wanting to see if it's a good movie or not. I mean, it's definitely a good movie. I don't think it's a great movie, because by this point in the Marvel movies, like, we kind of expect more from them, because they've already learned from, some of the things they did in phase 1. And so, and I think also that decision to do a different kind of origin story, and it's not a bad decision to try it. I mean, it worked in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. That was an awesome way to tell a different kind of origin story. This one, it made me feel like, especially I guess with her playing the character so straight-faced, it made me feel like when they would show flashbacks of her and her best friend Maria hanging out at the bar and joking around, I was like, that feels more like probably what she's like. And that's probably a movie, obviously, that we didn't get to see, because they had to fast forward and get us to the good parts, I guess you could say. Because I can see how if they had done a traditional origin movie, it might have been a while to build up to get to that. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I kind of like going with what I did before, that I feel like she was been like pre-programmed. Oh, yeah. But yeah, definitely like the more fun version of her would have been the one I wanted to see more in the movie. Like, it probably would have been better if they started out with like, I've been programmed as a Kree, and then slowly she got less and less serious, but it kind of seemed like she stayed more serious. So, yeah, I feel like that part they could have improved that a little bit to make her a little bit more fun.
Yeah, and you know what? And that could still change. I mean, we saw that happen with Thor. He started off one way. He was very, arrogant in his first movie, and then, they slowly softened him up. But by the time we get to Thor Ragnarok, he's all jokes and games, So it's like, this is just her first appearance as far as the movies. I'm sure, when she shows up in Endgame, I think she's a character too that helps when there's a cast around her. Because that's what I noticed with this one, like with the different casts that were surrounding her in the different sections of the movie, it kind of helped her, especially since she was having trouble remembering. So maybe now that all that's out of the way, now she can kind of let loose, like she says at the end of the movie, let loose, and not just her powers, but maybe her personality, and letting it come through more. So that's pretty much all I could think about the movie. What did you have anything else you wanted to add? Okay, go for it.
So I thought the theme change was interesting, because it kind of started off with a theme of like looking for your inner strength, right? And then she ends up figuring out that she can use her hands as weapons, that it was taken away from her and all that. And then it kind of changes into a more like a theme of things are not always what they seem to be. So I don't know. I like the first theme better, but I kind of like the first theme better. I feel like both of them were in there, but there was a dramatic shift in the way that the movie was going. So, any comments on that, Joe?
Well, I mean, like in the flashback scenes, there were a couple of times when they were showing that, like that whole, she has to prove herself type of thing. There was like one comment by one of her fellow pilots, and then one flashback with her dad getting after her for crashing a little race car. So that's, again, the kind of things that I was like, it almost felt like they were saying, oh yeah, remember that movie you didn't see? Remember she dealt with all that? Here's the result of that. So that's what it felt like to me.
Yeah. And then we didn't talk about the cat. We have to talk about the cat. So Samuel L. Jackson fell in love with this cat there. And then we find out, like, they kept hinting that the cat was some other kind of creature. And they finally, like, show it devouring things, people. And I don't remember the name, but I just remember it started with a T, and it reminded me of turducken. And it's not a turducken. No. It's not a turducken. That's a turkey and a duck and a chicken. But Flurkin. So Flurkin, that's an interesting name because it reminds me of a turducken. I just can't let that one go because it's hilarious. So, and then I liked what they did with that. And then, of course, we find out the origin of Samuel L. Jackson's eyesight loss, which I just think it's hilarious. It came from that. Yeah. And I also thought that the best part of the movie was when they were discussing Captain Marvel's name. Well, Dr. Marvel's name and Captain Marvel's name. And then basically Samuel L. Jackson was saying, well, it should be Marvel, like the Marvelettes, instead of Marvel. So, and then you start singing Mr. Postman. That was the highlight of the movie right there. Samuel L. Jackson singing Mr. Postman. So I couldn't leave out the best part of the movie.
Yeah. All right. Well, I know you wanted to give ratings. I think we're going to end up doing two different types of scales, right? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Mine can easily be converted to yours, though.
Yeah. Well, I'll let you go first because I'm going to see what you decided on.
Yeah, my decision was hard. So I'm thinking, like, I'm going to give a percentage because I'm a teacher. So, pass or fail kind of thing. So 70% is passing. So I would consider that kind of average. So I'm going to give this one like an 80%.
Oh, okay. So they still get a B on their report card, basically.
Yeah, they get a B. Mm-hmm.
See, I struggle because I want to do a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best, but I'm stuck between 6 and 7, but I really want to do 6 because I feel like it's 7 for sure, but I want to take away that point just because I expected more, and building the hype and all that, but like I said, it's a good movie. It's just not a great movie. And I think that's what everybody wanted. Obviously, they wanted a great movie because Marvel's been doing great movies lately. I mean, even with Ant-Man and the Wasp, like that one was so much fun, especially after the downer of, Infinity War's ending. But it still, again, felt like a Marvel movie to me. It just, I don't know. I think I'm just going to stick with the 6 out of 10.
Yeah. I think we're interpreting the rating a little differently because I'm thinking of the passing 70 thing, But I agree with you. Like, from the Marvel movies, which we've been rewatching, like all of them, it definitely feels like it fell short for a Marvel movie. Like, it was a good movie. It wasn't a great movie. So, and then I have a trivia question for you, Joe. Oh, yeah, I don't know if you're going to know the answer to it or not, but I didn't know the answer, and that's why I'm asking. Why or how can Captain Marvel breathe in space?
Well, I think they did kind of drop the ball on that a little bit towards the end because she did originally have that kind of force field that goes over her.
Oh, that makes sense.
But I think you're talking about at the end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because at the end, I did a little bit of research. She has this form, which basically the way Goku turns into like a Super Saiyan, she turns into this form called binary, which it was all that energy around her. So that's how I would assume that she was able to survive in space at that point, because I know that's supposed to be when she's really super powerful. And obviously she showed that by taking out an entire spaceship by herself. So, but anyway, so that's our thoughts on the movie. Like I said, definitely go watch it, see for yourself. I mean, it's still a good Marvel movie, but at this point, I guess I'm just ready for Endgame, and she's going to be a part of it. So I think she's going to be a good addition too. And like I said, I think especially with some of the actors she's going to have to work with in Endgame. I mean, like I said, she did really well with Samuel Jackson here, but she's got the entire Avengers cast to work with in Endgame. So I think it's still going to be good. So
Oh yeah. Then I mean, I expect great things from Endgame because they're combining everyone. And I'm always happy with the Avengers movies when they bring everybody together. So
all right, guys. Well, thanks for hanging in there with us with our technical difficulties. So, yeah, definitely go out and check out Captain Marvel this weekend and over spring break. There should be plenty of time to go check it out. And we will see you guys next time.